I, Jessica Mitchell, 32 years old, never imagined my family would watch me on national television after telling me to stop pretending to be successful. 2 months ago, my sister Amanda's cruel words at our family gathering crushed me as everyone laughed. They mocked my tech startup, calling it a fantasy while I struggled to make rent. I left in tears that day, but with determination burning inside me. 2 months later, they would all be watching me on the evening news. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had someone doubt your dreams, because this story is about proving everyone wrong when they least expect it. Growing up in Boston as the middle child was never easy. My family wasn't wealthy, but we were comfortable enough to live in a decent neighborhood with good schools. My older sister Amanda, now 36, was the golden child, valedictorian, Ivy League graduate, and now a successful investment banker making six figures. My younger brother Brian, 28, followed the traditional path to success by becoming a doctor. And then there was me, always somewhere in between. My parents, Margaret and Richard Mitchell, never missed an opportunity to compare us. "Why can't you be more like Amanda?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. "Brian is already publishing research papers, and you're still figuring things out," was the theme of my early 20s. From the time I was 12, I was fascinated by computers and technology. While other kids played outside, I was disassembling old computers and learning to code. My parents saw this as playing with computers rather than developing valuable skills. When I wanted to attend a coding camp instead of tennis lessons like Amanda, my mother scoffed, saying it wouldn't get me anywhere in life. College was a struggle. Unlike my siblings who received full financial support, I worked part-time at a coffee shop while studying computer science. I maintained decent grades, but they weren't exceptional like Amanda's or Brian's. My parents frequently reminded me of this difference. After graduation, I was accepted into a prestigious MBA program, which briefly earned me some familial approval. But 6 months in, I realized I was following someone else's path. A startup idea had been brewing in my mind, an AI platform that could help small businesses compete with larger corporations by optimizing their operations. When I dropped out to pursue this dream, my family was beyond disappointed. "You're throwing your life away," my father said, not even trying to understand my vision. Our annual family gatherings became increasingly uncomfortable. While Amanda boasted about her promotions and Brian discussed his medical breakthroughs, I had little to contribute that my family valued. They established a clear hierarchy of success, and I was firmly at the bottom. The first major betrayal came when I needed $5,000 for essential business equipment. After exhausting my savings and maxing out my credit cards, I reluctantly approached my parents. They refused outright, claiming they couldn't risk their money on my hobby. Just 2 weeks later, I discovered they had given Amanda $25,000 for a home renovation project. When I confronted them, my mother simply said, "Amanda has proven she can be responsible with money." That night, I cried myself to sleep, feeling completely unsupported by the people who should have believed in me the most. But something hardened inside me, a determination to succeed without them, to prove them wrong not out of spite, but because I genuinely believed in my vision. Little did I know that the worst betrayal was yet to come, and it would be the catalyst that changed everything. My company, Optimize AI, began as nothing more than a concept scribbled on napkins and a business plan drafted on my laptop. The idea was revolutionary yet straightforward: create an artificial intelligence platform that could analyze small businesses' operations and suggest optimizations that would typically require expensive consultants. During a local tech conference I had scraped together money to attend, I met Tyler Rodriguez, a brilliant programmer who shared my vision. Despite having offers from established tech giants, Tyler saw potential in my idea and agreed to come on board as a co-founder. We became a two-person army against an industry dominated by giants. Our first office was my tiny one-bedroom apartment in a less-than-desirable neighborhood. We worked on a folding table I found on the sidewalk, taking turns using the single decent chair I owned. The other person sat on a stack of cushions. We worked 18-hour days, surviving primarily on instant ramen and coffee. Pitching to investors was a nightmare. Being a young woman in tech was already challenging, but pitching an AI solution when AI was considered either science fiction or the exclusive domain of tech giants. Nearly impossible. One investor actually laughed in my face, saying, "Sweetheart, leave the big tech ideas to the big boys." 6 months into development, we secured our first client, a local bookstore struggling to compete with online retailers. We implemented our beta version, but our server crashed due to inadequate equipment, the very equipment I had asked my parents to help fund. The bookstore owner was understanding but couldn't afford to wait for us to fix the issues. We lost our only client. That night, Tyler suggested we should consider giving up. "Jessica, we're burning through what little money we have, and we have nothing to show for it," he said, exhaustion evident in his voice. "Maybe your family is right. Maybe we're chasing a fantasy." His words stung, but rather than deflate me, they ignited something. "Give me 3 days," I replied. 3 days to solve our core algorithm issues. For the next 72 hours, I barely ate or slept. I drank so much coffee that my hands shook as I typed. When Tyler checked in, he found me surrounded by empty energy drink cans, my hair unwashed, still wearing the same clothes from 3 days before. But I had done it. I'd created an algorithm that worked, one that could analyze business data and provide actionable insights with remarkable accuracy. With our improved technology, we approached a local angel investor named David Chin who specialized in AI startups. After a demonstration, he was impressed enough to invest $50,000 in exchange for a small equity stake. It wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but it was enough to rent a small office space, upgrade our equipment, and begin attracting clients. I chose not to share this progress with my family. Their doubt had become so constant that I couldn't bear to hear more dismissive comments about my hobby business. During family dinners, I deflected questions about my work, allowing them to believe I was still struggling. As we began to gain traction with small local businesses, an unexpected betrayal blindsided me. A potential investor reached out, mentioning he knew my sister Amanda. During our meeting, he seemed hesitant despite being initially enthusiastic about our product. "I have to be honest," he finally said. "Your sister mentioned that your business was a joke and that you've always had big ideas but no follow-through. I value her financial insight, so I wanted to hear your side." I maintained my composure during the meeting, but afterward, I broke down in Tyler's arms. "My own sister is actively sabotaging us," I sobbed. The investor ultimately decided not to fund us, costing us a potential $200,000 in capital. Despite this setback, we persevered. Our client list grew slowly but steadily. We refined our product, worked out bugs, and built a reputation for delivering results. Small businesses using our platform reported 15 to 30% increases in efficiency and corresponding growth in revenue. By the time the annual family gathering approached, Optimize AI was serving 27 clients, and we had just begun discussions with a national retail chain interested in our services. For the first time, I felt I had something to be proud of, something even my success-obsessed family might appreciate. I was wrong. The annual Mitchell family gathering fell on a crisp autumn Sunday. I remember feeling unusually optimistic as I drove to my parents' suburban home. Optimize AI had just signed its 30th client, and we were in early talks with a national retail chain. After years of struggle, I finally had concrete successes to share. I had even purchased a small gift for my parents, a handcrafted crystal paperweight, with some of our first actual profits. It wasn't expensive like the gifts Amanda typically brought, but it represented something important to me: legitimacy. I was finally earning enough to give rather than just receive. When I arrived, the house was already buzzing with conversation. Amanda's Mercedes and Brian's BMW were parked in the driveway, making my used Honda Civic look even more modest than usual. Taking a deep breath, I clutched my small gift bag and walked inside. "Jessica, you finally made it," my mother said, kissing my cheek quickly before turning back to Amanda, who was showing off photos of her recent vacation to the Maldives. "Sorry I'm a bit late," I explained. "I was finalizing a contract with a new client." Oh, you're still doing that computer thing? My mother asked distractedly, not waiting for an answer as she ushered me into the dining room. The table was set immaculately as always, with the good china reserved for special occasions. I placed my gift on the side table where family presents were traditionally gathered, noting how small it looked next to the large, beautifully wrapped packages from my siblings. Dinner began with my father carving the roast while asking Brian about his research. My brother launched into an explanation of his latest publication on cardiovascular treatments, using medical terminology he knew our parents wouldn't understand but would be impressed by nonetheless. And the chief of surgery has offered me a position on the advanced procedures team, Brian announced proudly. It's usually reserved for physicians with at least 5 more years of experience than me. The table erupted in congratulations. My mother actually teared up. We always knew you were special, Brian. Always ahead of the curve. That's wonderful news, I said sincerely, happy for my brother despite feeling invisible. Jessica, pass the potatoes, my father said, effectively ending any acknowledgement of my comment. As dessert was served, I decided it was time to share my own news. I have some updates about Optimize AI, I began, attempting to keep my voice steady. We've just signed our 30th client, and we're in talks with. Oh, Jessica, Amanda interrupted with a dismissive wave of her hand, no business talk at dinner. We've had a long week of actual work. I felt my face flush but pressed on. It is actual work. In fact, we're projecting to break 7 figures in revenue next year based on our current growth trajectory. A silence fell over the table before Amanda let out a sharp laugh. 7 figures? Be serious. You work out of that tiny office in the bad part of town. Your company doesn't even have a proper sign on the door. We're being lean with expenses, I defended. It's standard practice for startups too. Startups, my father scoffed. You and what, 2 other people playing with computers? That's not a real company. We have 5 employees now, I countered, feeling my throat tighten. And we're making a real difference for small businesses that. Jessica, my mother interjected softly, which somehow hurt more than the other's outright dismissal. Have you thought about applying for that marketing position at Amanda's firm? She said they're still accepting resumes, and with your degree. I don't want a marketing job at Amanda's firm. I said, louder than intended. I'm building something important. Something that's mine. Amanda rolled her eyes dramatically. Look, we're all tired of this charade. You've been building something 4 years now, and what do you have to show for it? You drive a 10-year-old car, you wear the same clothes until they're threadbare, and you can barely afford your apartment. Success isn't just about material things, I argued, though I knew this concept was foreign to my status-conscious family. Stop pretending to be successful when we all know you're barely making rent, Amanda said loudly, causing everyone at the table to go quiet. It's embarrassing. For all of us. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the table, hoping someone, anyone, would defend me. My father studied his plate. My mother nervously rearranged her napkin. Brian looked uncomfortable but remained silent. You don't know anything about my business, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We know enough, my father finally spoke. You're wasting your potential on this fantasy when you could have a stable career like your siblings. Do you know how it feels when our friends ask about you, and we have nothing impressive to report? That was when I noticed my cousin Nathan, the family documentarian, had his phone partially hidden under the table, apparently recording the conversation. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave me a small, apologetic smile. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. Jessica, don't be dramatic, my mother sighed. We're just concerned about your future. No, you're concerned about appearances, I corrected her, gathering my purse. You've never once asked me to explain what my company actually does or why I believe in it. You've decided it's a failure because it doesn't fit your narrow definition of success. I walked to the door, then paused, turning back. And my gift is on the side table. It's the first thing I've ever been able to give you that I purchased with profits from my company. Maybe that will help you report something to your friends. The drive home was a blur. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, refusing to let myself cry until I was safely inside my apartment. Once the door closed behind me, I collapsed on my small sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. For hours, I alternated between tears and anger. I considered giving up, wondering if my family's constant doubt had been right all along. Maybe I was deluding myself. Maybe I was a failure. Around 2 a.m., exhausted from crying and emotional turmoil, I opened my laptop to distract myself. That's when I saw the email that would change everything, an email I almost deleted, thinking it was spam. The subject line read, "Acquisition Interest, Optimize AI." With trembling fingers, I clicked it open, having no idea that this moment would become the turning point that would prove my family wrong in the most public way possible. The email sat in my inbox like a mirage, seeming too good to be true. It was from Gregory Wilson, VP of Acquisitions at Tech Giant, one of the largest technology corporations in the world. The message was brief but life-altering. "We've been monitoring Optimize AI's progress and are impressed with your proprietary algorithm and growing client base. Tech Giant is interested in discussing potential acquisition options. Please contact me at your earliest convenience to arrange a meeting." My first thought was that it must be a prank. Perhaps Amanda or someone else from my family had created a fake email to mock me further. I hovered over the sender's address. It had the official Tech Giant domain. Still skeptical, I researched Gregory Wilson and found his LinkedIn profile, confirming he was indeed the VP of Acquisitions. With shaking hands, I replied requesting verification of the email's authenticity, still protecting myself from potential humiliation. Within an hour, despite the late hour on the West Coast, I received a phone call from a Tech Giant number. "Jessica Mitchell? This is Gregory Wilson from Tech Giant. I apologize for calling so late, but I saw your email and wanted to personally confirm our interest in Optimize AI." His voice was professional and sincere. This was real. "We've had our innovation scouts tracking promising AI startups, and your algorithm for small business optimization caught our attention 6 months ago. We've been quietly monitoring your progress, and we're impressed with how you've refined the technology with limited resources. We scheduled a meeting for the following week at Tech Giant's regional office in Boston." I hung up the phone and sat in stunned silence for several minutes before calling Tyler, who was equally shocked and excited. The meeting day arrived, and I spent hours preparing. I wore the only professional outfit I owned, a navy blue suit I'd purchased for investor meetings, and arrived early to calm my nerves. The Tech Giant office occupied 10 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper, a stark contrast to our humble workspace. Gregory Wilson greeted me along with Susan Chen, Tech Giant's Director of AI Integration. They led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Let's cut to the chase," Gregory said after preliminary discussions about Optimize AI's technology. "We believe your platform fills a crucial gap in our product lineup. Tech Giant has struggled to effectively serve small businesses. It's not our core market. Your solution could change that." Susan nodded in agreement. "Your algorithm achieves results our team has been working toward for years. We see tremendous potential for scaling it within our infrastructure." Then came the offer that made my heart stop. "We're prepared to offer $5 million for acquisition of Optimize AI, with employment contracts for you and your core team." $5 million. The number echoed in my head. It was more money than I had ever imagined. My first instinct was to accept immediately, but a voice inside reminded me of all the nights I'd worked until exhaustion, all the sacrifices I'd made. "Thank you for the generous offer," I heard myself saying. "But I believe Optimize AI is worth significantly more, especially considering the proprietary nature of our algorithm and our growing client base. Additionally, I'd like to discuss remaining as CEO of Optimize AI as a subsidiary rather than just an employee." I expected them to laugh or withdraw the offer. Instead, Gregory looked at Susan with raised eyebrows, seemingly impressed by my confidence. "We can discuss a counteroffer," he replied. "And possibly a leadership role within the subsidiary structure." The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. Tyler and I hired a lawyer specializing in tech acquisitions, an expense we could barely afford but knew was necessary. We conducted due diligence, reviewed contracts, and pushed for better terms. In the end, tech giant agreed to an $8.7 million acquisition with our entire team retained and me continuing as CEO of Optimize AI as a tech giant subsidiary. We would have access to their vast resources while maintaining operational independence. The day we signed the final papers in tech giant's sleek conference room felt surreal. As I watched the ink dry on my signature, I thought about how far we'd come from my tiny apartment with the folding table. "Congratulations, Jessica," Gregory said, shaking my hand firmly. "We're excited to have Optimize AI join the tech giant family." After the signing, I met with tech giant's PR team to discuss the acquisition announcement. They had a comprehensive strategy planned, including press releases, industry publications, and media appearances. "We have interest from several business news outlets," the PR director explained. "But Channel 7 News has requested an exclusive interview with you for their local success stories segment. It would air during prime time next Thursday." A television interview. The thought was terrifying yet exhilarating. "That sounds perfect," I said, thinking of my family gathered around the TV for their usual Thursday dinner. Throughout this whirlwind, I maintained my silence with my family. They hadn't reached out since our disastrous dinner, and I hadn't volunteered any information. Let them learn about my success along with the rest of the world. As I prepared for the interview, I discovered something that crystallized my resolve. A business associate mentioned that my brother Brian had actively discouraged a potential investor from backing Optimize AI several months ago, claiming it was financially unstable and that I had emotional issues that affected my business judgment. This third betrayal from my own flesh and blood should have crushed me. Instead, it strengthened my determination to tell my story, all of it, on national television. The day of the interview arrived with crystal clarity. I remember checking the weather app that morning, 72 degrees, sunny, not a cloud in sight. It seemed like even the universe was conspiring to make this day perfect. I arrived at the Channel 7 studio 3 hours before the scheduled interview time. The receptionist directed me to a green room where a makeup artist named Lily immediately began fussing over me. "We want you to look natural but camera-ready," she explained, applying foundation. "The lights can wash you out otherwise." As Lily worked, a production assistant briefed me on the interview format. "Rebecca Williams will be conducting the interview. She'll start with some background questions about your company, then move into the acquisition details. The segment is scheduled for 7 minutes, which is substantial for our evening news." My stomach churned with nervousness. 7 minutes to summarize years of struggle and vindication. 7 minutes to tell my story to thousands of viewers, including my family. An hour before airtime, Rebecca Williams herself came to meet me. She was shorter than she appeared on television, but her presence filled the room. "Jessica, it's lovely to meet you," she said warmly. "I've been reading about your algorithm. Fascinating work, especially for small businesses that are typically overlooked by tech giants." Her genuine interest in Optimize AI calmed my nerves somewhat. She wasn't looking to ambush me, she truly wanted to understand my journey. "We'll keep this conversational," she assured me. "Just tell your story as honestly as you can. People connect with authenticity." Before I knew it, I was being led onto the set, a modern arrangement with 2 comfortable chairs angled toward each other. Cameras loomed around us, and technicians made final adjustments to lighting and sound. 3, 2, 1. The floor director pointed at Rebecca. "Tonight, we have a special segment on a local success story," Rebecca began, looking directly into the camera. "Jessica Mitchell, founder of Optimize AI, has just secured an $8.7 million acquisition deal with technology giant Tech Giant. Jessica, congratulations on this remarkable achievement." The interview began smoothly. I explained Optimize AI's mission to help small businesses compete through artificial intelligence. I discussed the algorithm we developed and our growing client base. Rebecca nodded encouragingly, asking insightful follow-up questions. Then came the pivot I'd been anticipating. Jessica, success stories like yours don't happen overnight. Tell us about your journey. What challenges did you face? Taking a deep breath, I shared the reality of my startup experience. The long hours, financial struggles, and rejections from investors who didn't take a young female tech entrepreneur seriously. There were days I couldn't afford both rent and food, I admitted. I lived on ramen noodles for months at a time. My co-founder Tyler and I worked out of my tiny apartment because we couldn't afford office space. Rebecca leaned forward. And through all this struggle, did you have a support system? Family and friends who believed in you? This was the moment of truth, the question I'd anticipated and dreaded. Family support was complicated, I said carefully. The entrepreneurial path isn't always understood by those who prefer traditional careers. There were many people who advised me to give up, to get what they called a real job. Yet you persisted, Rebecca prompted. I believed in what we were building, I replied, my voice growing stronger. Sometimes you have to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's the hardest part, continuing to move forward when the voices around you, even those who supposedly love you, tell you that you're failing. Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. And now those same voices will be celebrating your success. Perhaps, I said with a small smile. But I've learned that external validation isn't what drives true entrepreneurs. It's the vision of creating something valuable, something that helps others. The interview continued for a few more minutes, concluding with details about Optimize AI's future under the tech giant umbrella. As the camera stopped rolling, Rebecca squeezed my hand. That was excellent, Jessica. Your authenticity will resonate with viewers. I thanked her and the crew, then retreated to the green room to remove my makeup and collect my thoughts. The interview would air at 6:30 p.m. prime time. My family would be sitting down to dinner, watching their usual evening news. The thought gave me a mixture of anxiety and satisfaction. Back in my apartment, I paced nervously as the clock approached 6:30. I turned on my television, feeling surreal at the thought of seeing myself on screen. After a few commercial breaks, Rebecca's familiar face appeared, introducing the segment. Watching myself was a strange experience. I appeared more confident than I'd felt. My words came across as measured and thoughtful rather than nervous. I was proud of how I'd presented myself and Optimize AI. The moment the segment ended, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, emails, social media alerts, all congratulating me on the acquisition and interview. Among them, I saw Amanda's name appear on my caller ID. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Amanda. Jessica. Her voice was unnaturally bright. I just saw you on Channel 7. Why didn't you tell us about the acquisition? This is incredible news. Is it? I asked calmly. Last time we spoke, you called my company a joke and said I was pretending to be successful. A brief silence followed. Oh, you know how family dinners get. I was just trying to motivate you to aim higher. And look. It worked. Before I could respond, another call came through, my parents. Then another from Brian. Then cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends I hadn't heard from in years. My social media accounts were flooded with connection requests from distant relatives and former classmates who had previously ignored me. My LinkedIn profile, which had lingered at a few hundred connections, suddenly gained thousands of views overnight. The most surprising development came the next morning. My cousin Nathan had posted a video to social media that quickly went viral in our extended network. He had spliced together the footage he'd secretly recorded at our family dinner, capturing Amanda's cruel comments and my family's dismissive attitude, alongside clips from my television interview. He titled it, How Not to Treat Entrepreneurs in Your Family. The video spread rapidly, generating hundreds of supportive comments for me and harsh criticism for my family. Local business publications picked up the story, framing it as a classic entrepreneurial vindication tale. A reporter from the Boston Business Journal reached out for a follow-up interview, specifically asking about overcoming family doubt. Through it all, I maintained a dignified silence on social media. I neither acknowledged Nathan's video nor responded to the flood of supportive messages it generated. I needed time to process my conflicting emotions, the validation I'd craved for so long alongside the deep hurt that remained from years of dismissal. 3 days after the interview aired, my mother texted, "Dad and I would like to have you over for dinner this weekend. Just you. We need to talk." I stared at those words for a long time, contemplating what awaited me at my childhood home. Would there be genuine recognition of how they'd treated me? Or just an attempt to associate themselves with my newfound success? Either way, I knew this confrontation was inevitable and necessary, not just for them, but for my own healing and closure. The drive to my parents' house felt different this time. Same route, same scenery, but I was arriving as a different person, successful by even their narrow definition, but also changed in ways they couldn't see. The $8.7 million acquisition had transformed my financial reality overnight, but money wasn't the only change. I had found my voice. As I pulled up to their house in my still modest Honda, I hadn't had time to car shop yet. I noticed my parents watching anxiously from the living room window. My father opened the front door before I even rang the bell. "Jessica," he said, his voice uncharacteristically tentative. "Thank you for coming." The formality between us was strange and painful. I followed him into the living room where my mother waited, perched nervously on the edge of the sofa. The air felt thick with unspoken words. "We saw your interview," my mother began. "You were very professional." "Thank you," I replied simply, not making it easier for them. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us until my father cleared his throat. "The acquisition amount they mentioned, $8.7 million, is that accurate?" Of course that would be his first real question. Not about the years of struggle or how I felt or what our company actually did. "Yes," I confirmed. "Plus employment contracts for the entire team, and I'm continuing as CEO of the subsidiary." "That's remarkable," he said, looking genuinely impressed for perhaps the first time in my adult life. "We had no idea things had progressed so far." "You never asked," I replied quietly. "Not once in 3 years did either of you ask for details about what I was building." My mother twisted her wedding ring nervously. "We were concerned, Jessica. Your sister and brother took such straightforward paths, and you seemed to be struggling for so long. Concern would have been asking questions, offering encouragement, or at minimum, not actively discouraging me," I countered. What I experienced wasn't concern. It was dismissal. Before they could respond, the doorbell rang. My mother looked startled. "That must be Amanda and Brian. We asked them to come a bit later to give us time to talk first." My stomach tightened. "You didn't mention they would be here." "We're family," my father said firmly. "We need to address this as a family." My mother went to let them in. Amanda entered first, looking uncharacteristically subdued in casual clothes rather than her usual power suit. Brian followed, his expression unreadable. "Jessica," Amanda said, stepping toward me with arms outstretched for a hug I didn't reciprocate. "Your interview was amazing. I've already told everyone at the firm that my sister is the founder of Optimize AI." "Interesting," I replied coldly. "Just a few weeks ago, you told everyone at dinner that I was pretending to be successful." Amanda's smile faltered. "That was just sister talk. You know I've always believed in you." I pulled my phone from my pocket and played a recording, Amanda's voice clearly saying to someone, "My sister thinks she's a tech entrepreneur, but between us, it's just a glorified hobby. I give it 6 months before she's begging for a real job." The color drained from her face. "Where did you get that?" "From Derek Hamilton at Vision Ventures. You told him this 3 months ago when he mentioned he was considering investing in Optimize AI. He recorded your call because something felt off about a sister sabotaging her own family." My father looked shocked. "Amanda, is this true?" Before she could answer, I turned to Brian. "And you told Michael Chen that I had emotional issues that made me an unstable investment." Brian's professional demeanor cracked. "That's out of context. I was just concerned that I might succeed?" I finished for him. That I might achieve something on my terms instead of following your prescribed path? The room fell silent. My mother was the first to speak, her voice trembling. We didn't know, Jessica. We truly didn't understand what you were building. That's just it, I said, the anger I'd suppressed for years finally surfacing. You didn't try to understand. You decided my path wasn't valid because it didn't look like what you expected success to be. My father straightened his shoulders. Regardless of past misunderstandings, we're very proud of you now. And we want to help. I've been researching investment strategies for your new wealth. I think with my financial background, I could help manage. No, I interrupted firmly. You don't get to dismiss me for years and then offer to manage my money when I succeed despite your lack of support. My mother began crying softly. We're your family, Jessica. Family supports each other, I replied, my voice breaking slightly. Family believes in each other even when the path isn't clear. Family doesn't actively undermine each other's dreams. Amanda attempted to regain control of the situation. Look, we all said things we didn't mean. Let's move forward. In fact, I've already mentioned to my boss that you might be interested in joining our investment committee with your new tech industry insights. I laughed mirthlessly. You still don't get it. I'm not looking for your approval anymore, and I'm certainly not looking to leverage my success to boost your career. Then what do you want? Brian asked, frustration evident in his voice. I took a deep breath. I want acknowledgement of how you've treated me. I want genuine apologies, not because I'm suddenly successful, but because you recognize that how you behaved was wrong regardless of whether I succeeded or failed. The silence that followed was deafening. My family looked at each other uncomfortably and used to being called out so directly. And going forward, I continued, I need boundaries. I won't be attending family gatherings where my worth is measured by my bank account or job title. I won't be taking financial advice from people who wouldn't loan me $5,000 when I desperately needed it but now want to manage my millions. And I won't pretend that everything is fine just to maintain family harmony. My father's face hardened. So you're punishing us because we didn't believe in your unconventional career choice? This isn't punishment, I clarified. These are boundaries. There's a difference. I'm protecting myself from further harm while leaving the door open for genuine repair. I stood to leave, but paused. By the way, I know you've already reached out to Tech Giant about consulting positions related to Optimize AI. The shocked expressions confirmed my information was correct. Those decisions go through me now, and the answer is no. As I walked toward the door, my mother called after me. Jessica, please. We're still your family. I turned back one last time. Yes, you are. And I hope someday that will mean something better than what it has meant so far. The following weeks were a blur of business transitions and personal adjustments. I hired a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and entrepreneurial stress. During our sessions, I unpacked years of seeking validation from people who were fundamentally incapable of giving it. Success doesn't heal family wounds, my therapist explained during one particularly emotional session. In fact, it often amplifies them. The question now is how to build a life that doesn't revolve around either gaining their approval or proving them wrong. This insight struck me deeply. For years, my drive had been partially fueled by the desire to prove my family wrong. With that accomplished in the most public way possible, I needed to rediscover my purpose beyond vindication. Meanwhile, my parents and siblings continued reaching out with increasing desperation. They sent gifts, left voicemails full of apologies that never quite acknowledged the specific harm they'd caused, and even showed up at my office unannounced. They were politely turned away by security. The most difficult realization came when I discovered through my lawyer that my parents had incorporated a consulting firm called Mitchell Family Advisors just days after my interview aired, apparently hoping to position themselves to benefit from my success. This betrayal, more calculated than emotional, clarified for me that true reconciliation would be a long and uncertain road. I set clear, limited parameters for contact, brief monthly phone calls, no unannounced visits, and a cooling-off period before any in-person meetings. I made it clear that any attempt to leverage my success for personal gain would result in further distance. Some family members respected these boundaries. Others did not. The distance between us grew, not because I was punishing them, but because true relationships require mutual respect and understanding, elements that had been missing from our family dynamic for as long as I could remember. In their absence, I found myself building a different kind of family, one based on shared values rather than shared DNA. Tyler and our team at Optimize AI, my therapist, and genuine friends who had believed in me before the acquisition became my support system. As I worked to heal these deep wounds, I realized that success alone couldn't fix what was broken in my family. But it had given me the strength and resources to step back and decide, perhaps for the first time, what role I wanted them to play in my life going forward. 6 months after the tech giant acquisition, Optimize AI had transformed dramatically. Our new office occupied the entire 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Boston Harbor. Our team had grown from 5 to 50 employees, each bringing unique talents to our expanding mission. The glass-walled conference room where I now sat reviewing quarterly projections was a far cry from the folding table in my apartment where it all began. Tyler, now our Chief Technology Officer, still worked alongside me daily, providing the same loyalty and brilliance that had helped build our success. The small business integration is exceeding projections, he reported, sliding a tablet across the polished table. We've onboarded over 300 new clients this quarter alone. I nodded, feeling a sense of satisfaction deeper than the numbers could convey. We were helping small businesses not just survive but thrive against corporate giants, exactly the vision I'd had from the beginning. My personal transformation had been equally profound. Business Insider had recently featured me in their Women Reshaping Tech issue, highlighting not just Optimize AI's technology but also our commitment to supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs. The magazine sat on my desk, my photo on the cover still surreal to see. More meaningful than the professional recognition was the community I'd built. I'd established the Mitchell Foundation for Entrepreneurial Innovation, providing grants and mentorship to startups led by women and minorities, people who, like me, might not fit the traditional mold of what an entrepreneur should look like. My relationship with my family had evolved into something I could never have predicted. After 2 months of limited contact following our confrontation, my cousin Nathan had reached out. Unlike the others, he had no agenda beyond reconnection. "I always believed in what you were doing," he told me over coffee. "That's why I recorded that dinner. People needed to see the truth about how dreams get squashed by the people who should support them the most." Nathan became my first family ally, and through him, I cautiously began rebuilding connections with select relatives who showed genuine remorse and understanding. My immediate family was more complicated. My parents had eventually stopped trying to insert themselves into my business affairs, recognizing that their actions had consequences. Our monthly phone calls remained brief and somewhat formal, but less tense as time passed. Amanda had perhaps the most difficult adjustment. Her identity had been so wrapped up in being the family success story that my ascension had shaken her foundation. After several failed attempts at superficial reconciliation, she sent a handwritten letter that showed the first real insight. "I realize now that I felt threatened by your different path," she wrote. "It was easier to dismiss your choices than to question whether my perfect life was actually making me happy. I can't undo the harm I caused, but I'm trying to understand why I caused it." It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a start. We began meeting occasionally for coffee, our conversations guarded but gradually more authentic. Brian, surprisingly, made the most concrete amends. He volunteered at one of my foundation's healthcare technology events, offering his medical expertise without attempting to claim credit or connection to me. When we spoke afterward, he simply said, "I'm trying to show up differently," which meant more than any elaborate apology. That Christmas, I declined my parents' dinner invitation, choosing instead to host a celebration for Optimize AI employees and their families. Yet I did send gifts, personalized and thoughtful rather than expensive, with notes expressing hope for continued healing in our relationships. My mother called after receiving hers, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been seeing a therapist," she confessed. "I'm trying to understand why I couldn't support you the way you needed. It's hard to face these things about myself." These small steps didn't erase the past, but they created possibility for a different future, one where relationships could be rebuilt on healthier foundations. The most profound personal growth came through my therapy sessions, where I worked to disentangle my self-worth from external validation. "Success is what you do," my therapist often reminded me. "Worth is who you are." This philosophy shaped my approach to mentoring young entrepreneurs, particularly women in technology. During a speaking engagement at my former university, a young woman approached me afterward. "My parents think computer science is a waste of my potential," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "They want me to go to law school like my sister." I recognized her pain immediately, the specific anguish of having your dreams dismissed by those whose approval you crave. "What do you want?" I asked her. "To build something that matters," she replied without hesitation. I nodded. "Then build it. Not to prove them wrong, but because it matters to you. That distinction will save you years of heartache." This interaction led to a more formal mentorship program through my foundation, connecting young innovators with established entrepreneurs who understood the unique challenges they faced. The culmination of this journey came unexpectedly, when I was invited to give a TED Talk titled "Building Beyond Validation: Entrepreneurship as Self-Discovery." Standing backstage, I peered through the curtain at the packed auditorium, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. My publicist touched my arm. "Your family is here," she whispered. "Fifth row, center. They asked me not to tell you until just before you went on. Should I have them removed?" I took a deep breath, considering the question. "No," I decided. "Let them stay." Walking onto the red circular carpet under bright lights, I could make out their faces, my parents, Amanda, and Brian, all sitting together, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Our eyes met briefly before I turned my attention to the full audience. "True innovation," I began, "often happens not despite obstacles but because of them. My path as an entrepreneur taught me that the people who doubt you the most can inadvertently become your greatest catalysts for growth." For the next 18 minutes, I shared my journey, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the lessons learned. I didn't sanitize the family conflicts but presented them as part of a larger truth about finding one's own definition of success. The most valuable currency in entrepreneurship isn't external validation, I concluded. It's the unshakable belief in your vision when no one else can see it yet. And sometimes, the people closest to you will be the last to recognize what you're building. That doesn't mean you stop building. It means you find the courage to continue anyway. The standing ovation that followed was overwhelming. Through tear-blurred vision, I saw my family rise with the crowd, their applause seeming somehow both apologetic and proud. Backstage, they waited uncertainly. My mother stepped forward first. "That was beautiful, Jessica," she said, genuine emotion in her voice. "And difficult to hear. We failed you in so many ways." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You did. But that's not the end of our story unless we choose it to be." We didn't have a miraculous reconciliation that day. There was too much history, too much hurt for such a neat resolution. But we did have dinner together afterward, the first in nearly a year, and the conversation felt different. Less performative. More real. As we parted, my father awkwardly attempted a hug, which I cautiously returned. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Not because of your success, but because of who you are despite how we treated you." It was imperfect progress, but progress nonetheless. Back at my office the next day, I finalized plans for OptimizeAI's newest innovation, a platform specifically designed for first-generation entrepreneurs from underserved communities. The project energized me in a way that felt purely internal, untethered from any need to prove myself to others. The journey had taught me that success is indeed the best revenge, but healing is the true victory. The family you choose, the community you build around shared values and mutual respect, can be stronger than the family you're born into. And sometimes, with patience and boundaries, the family you're born into can evolve into something healthier than you ever thought possible. So what about you? Have you ever had someone doubt your dreams or capabilities? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below. And if you found my journey inspiring, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that their vision matters, even when the people closest to them don't see it yet. Thank you for listening, and remember, the most important validation comes from within.